Let's take a look at a few of the process discovery modules that are available as a part of the TimelinePI Robotic Process Automation Process Assessment Pack. We'll begin by taking a quick look at a sample input file, and we'll go over a couple of the data requirements for TimelinePI. Now, the context here is we're going to be analyzing a business process representing a customer onboarding workflow where customers are submitting applications for credit cards. So I've just introspected a file that's got some events related to the processing of these credit card applications, and the key here are these three fields to the left. We need to make sure we have three key data points in order to load this data into TimelinePI and start assessing this process. We need to make sure we have a timestamp that tells us when any one of these events has occurred, a process identifier, which includes that unique ID for what we're looking to track and measure, in this case, probably an application number, and also an event or activity name. So what happened with the customer's application at that point in time, along with some other attribute related fields, and these can vary based on your system of record. Now, once we've got our data mapped, we can immediately load our data into the tool and begin to start analyzing and discovering some candidates for automation as a part of this process. Here in our overview page, good high-level statistics about the data set we've uploaded, along with metrics like average and range of duration of the process, the number of events that have gone into processing these applications on average, and a range of those as well. Cost related calculations for our full population, just how much does it cost us, and then on an average basis, how costly has it been, along with a frequency breakdown of all of our different events which could have occurred. So we're starting to understand what's happening as a part of these onboarding journeys, along with how commonly they're occurring. As you can see, I've sorted it here. Now, a common way of looking at this type of a process would be a schema representation. Now, this allows you to get a dominant perspective as to what this onboarding customer application process really looks like from a high level. And so you can build out models with varying complexities using this tool. We even got some intelligence built in, which will help you in selecting the events that make sense for this type of analysis. But here we have an interactive diagram which shows things like volume, or time spent in any given stage. So we're starting to understand where not only volume is occurring, but where time is being spent. We can even animate this and start to look at throughput and overall processing efficiency by visualizing each one of these circles going through is an application or a group of applications. You can see where they speed up and slow down, where they bunch up and back up. There's their bottlenecking, so that's obviously going to negatively affect the throughput. As they're changing colors, they're aging. So these are applications that have been in the process for a longer period of time. So again, we've got a very nice high-level representation of not only what this process looks like, but where we could stand to maybe further investigate some opportunities for automation based on our throughput and overall time spent in certain stages. Moving on from the schema model, we've got the ability to look at all of the different variations as to how the process was executed. So this path analysis is a frequency distribution of all the different process executions, where you've got our most commonly followed path here all the way to the left. Along the top, the number of applications which have executed one sequence versus another relative to the events listed on the left. So here we can see the consistency with which the process is executed. So not only can we see skipping steps and jumping around and going back and forth and repetitively doing things, but we can also start to understand, how good of a candidate is this process overall for automation? Is it very consistent, where there's only a few different pathways, or is it highly variable, where there's a lot of back and forth and a lot of different decision points, where we need to take that into account when we're looking to build out our digital workers? So you can visualize this from both a linear perspective, where you can see it here. You can compare these from a duration perspective as well. You can also look at it from a schema view. So that same type of analysis, just visualized now, where I can see where branching is occurring and where looping back, for example, is occurring. So a number of different ways to compare these different behaviors, whether it's by time, efficiency, compliance and risk, duration, or cost we can even include here, the ability to compare and contrast so we can start to focus on or target our higher costing activities and looking at candidates for automation from a cost perspective. The last thing that we'll touch on as a part of this demonstration will be our bottleneck analysis. Now, this is going to focus on the amount of time spent not overall in processing these applications, as you can see with our duration metric, which gives you a good representation of beginning to end, how long that time is taking, but more granularly at specific transitions or tasks within the process, exactly what amount of time is being spent at any given stage of the workflow. So what you've got here are the specific event to event transitions and exactly how long it's taking on average and in total to complete any given stage of the process. This allows us to really get an idea of, from a timing standpoint, which events and tasks are taking us the longest to complete and which we stand to gain the most amount of hours back to the business should we be able to automate portions of that task. So what you can see across the left are event to event transitions. These are specific stages in the process, how often they're occurring, what's the average time it takes us to go from one event to the other, how does that compute to the total amount of time, and then as a percentage of all the time that we've spent processing, what percentage is spent in any given stage of the process. Again, allowing us to stack rank. And what I'm doing is sorting high to low based on where we spend the most amount of our time processing these customer applications. And there's one in this example that stands out from the rest, almost 23%. And what we can even do is further justify looking at automating this by starting to say, if we can even bring this down a fraction of our average time, let's say from 28 to 25, we've got a dynamic calculator that tells you the exact amount of hours you stand to gain back to the business by running and investigating and looking for automation candidates at this specific part of the process. So we've touched on a few of the different process assessment modules inherent to the TimelinePI solution. Now, I'm glad that you were able to join us, and there will be more, so if you want to look out for other future videos that cover even more about what this process assessment pack will cover.